Welcome to this video lecture on PVTG or particularly vulnerable tribal groups. This is Dr. Sumohan Bandopadhyay from Department of Anthropology, Vidyasagar University, West Bengal. We all know that Government of India has made certain provisions for the backward sections, backward classes of its population. And accordingly, there are certain constitutional category like scheduled tribe, scheduled castes in our country. Now these PVTG or particularly vulnerable tribal group is an administrative category, and these groups represent the most backward sections of the scheduled tribe or ST. Now if we trace the origin of this term PVTG, we have to go back to the recommendations of Birhor Commission. During 70s, Birhor Commission recommended for creation of a particular sections among the scheduled tribes, because scheduled tribes across the country, all the scheduled tribes do not belong to same socio-economic conditions. So there are inequalities among them. Now, to address these most backward portions of the scheduled tribe populations, a new category PTG or primitive tribal groups was created. And it was in 1975. Initially, there were 52 such groups, but in 1993, again 23 more groups were added, and altogether 75 groups were enlisted across the country as PVTG. But you can easily understand this primitive, that PTG, primitive term was in a sense derogatory. So they were looking for certain terminology that will replace this primitive. And accordingly, in 2006, the new term PVTG, particularly vulnerable tribal group, was created. Now the question is, what are the features of this PVTG? Actually, the PVTG is characterized by 4 basic features. One is the pre-agricultural level of technology. Number 2, a stagnant or declining population. Number 3, very low literacy level and a subsistence level of economy. So these 4 features characterize the PVTG. We see that these PVTG mostly subsist on foraging, horticulture, cattle herding and other non-agricultural pursuits, and traditionally live in the forested and hilly tracts of the country. We find that their populations are highly scattered. They live in small groups in a nomadic or semi-nomadic way of life, and they also live by a number of different occupations which vary from one region to another. And if we say the population of these people, that where do they live and what is the population of these people? How many people are there altogether in the category of PVTG? According to latest census report, we find that the PVTG constitute more or less 2.7% of the total tribal population, ST population of the country. So it is around 2.8 million population. This population has a wide variation so far as the number of individuals in a particular PVTG group is concerned. Of these 75 groups, you can easily understand how small they are and how large they are. Actually, the largest of the PVTG communities, the Saharia are only about 4 lakh in population. On the other hand, Birhor is less than 100 in their numerical strength. And of the total 75 PVTGs, only 19 groups have a population less than 1000. Only 7 or 8 PVTG groups or PVTGs actually have a population more than 1 lakh. So you can easily understand what is the variation of their numerical strength across the country. Now, where do they live? We find that the PVTGs live in 18 states and 1 union territories, that is in Andaman and Nicobar Island. Of these 18 states, these PVTG are not present everywhere in equal number. In some places their concentration is higher, in some places they are only a few souls. Now, if we see their distribution and their geographical distribution across the country, we may take it into certain regional categories. Firstly, in the central Indian region, where most of the PVTG communities or PVTGs live. This central India region constitute Madhya Pradesh and other eastern states like Odisha, Bihar, Jharkhand, West Bengal, etc. In this region, total 38 particularly vulnerable tribal groups live. And the communities like Birhor, like Bondo, like Juang, like Lodha, these groups are found in this region. Also Baiga, there are Saharia. So this type of groups, these groups are found in this region. Now, the next large concentration of PVTG is found in southern region. In southern state, all the southern states have PVTG population. In Andhra Pradesh, including Telangana, we find 12 PVTGs. And of these PVTGs, there are Bodo Gadaba, Bondo Boroja, Chenchu, Kunda Reddy, Kunda Savara, etc. And in Karnataka, we also find a number of PVTGs. Say for example, Jenu Kuruba, Koraga, etc. Tamil Nadu houses the PVTGs like Kota, Kurumba, Irula, Toda, among others. In Kerala, there are very interesting PVTG groups or PVTGs which include Kadar, Chola Naikan, etc. So we can find that in southern region there are 2 PVTG groups that PVTGs, Kurumba and Kuraga, are found in 2 states, Karnataka as well as in Tamil Nadu. Now coming to the island region, I have already mentioned that in island region we find the PVTGs in Andaman and Nicobar Islands. This is the region which houses the smallest number of PVTG population. There are 5 tribes in this region which include Onge, Jarwa, Sentinelli, Great Andamanis and Sompen. Now in western region we find the PVTGs in Gujarat, Maharashtra and Rajasthan. In Gujarat there are groups like Kathodiya, Kotalia, Padhar, Siddhi, etc. In Maharashtra we find Kolam. So in Rajasthan, that is another interesting state, in Rajasthan we find only one PVTG group, that is Sehariya. Now coming to the north and northeastern state, that include Uttar Pradesh as well as Uttarakhand, Tripura and Manipur. In these three states in north and northeastern region we find PVTG groups. For example, Baksas in Uttar Pradesh, Muram in Manipur and Riang in Tripura. Regarding the distribution of PVTG, we should say that Odisha has the highest numbers of PVTGs or particularly vulnerable tribal groups. In Odisha we find 13 PVTGs, and there are certain states which have only one PVTG each in their state. For example, Tripura, for example, Rajasthan, etc. But at the same time, we should mention that there are certain tribal groups, PVTGs, which figure in the list of different states PVTG lists, in the list of different states. Say for example Birhor. Birhor is found in the list of Jharkhand, Odisha, West Bengal. So if we take such overlapping of PVTGs, we find that more or less 65 PVTGs are found in the PVTG list in the country. So far we have known that what is meant by PVTG, when the term was coined, and what is the nature of their distribution, their population, etc. As you have already understood that PVTG is the most backward section of the scheduled tribe, so government is much concerned about them, and they have formulated different plans and programs from time to time for their development. The latest guideline for the development of the PVTGs formulated by central government in 2019, and in this plan, which is basically a habitat centered approach, the government has aimed to take up that their socio-economic development takes place in a comprehensive manner while retaining their culture and heritage in the intact. And also they wanted to take up a habitat level approach for their development. So it aims to intervene, this government plan aims to intervene in all spheres of the socio-cultural and economic life of these people, so that a visible impact can be seen and a visible improvement of these people can take place. So this is the aim of the current plan for the development of PVTGs. Now what is the basic features of these plan formulated by, or the scheme formulated by this government. Now the government plan has certain particular thrust area in which they wanted to formulate programs for the development of these people, and this plan is very flexible so that it can be modified according to the need of the people. Now what are the thrust area of this recent plan for the PVTGs? The thrust areas include: number 1, generation of employment; number 2, development of livelihood of the people; number 3, educational development through enhancement of literacy, enrollment and the reduction of the dropout rates, as well as setting up residential schools, hostels for the PVTGs. Number 4, it is also aiming at the filling of gap for health service delivery beyond the NHM activities. That means National Health Mission activities. The 5th thrust area is the making of provision for safe drinking water for these people. 6th, it is another aim of this program is providing sanitation facilities for the PVTGs. 7, recognition of their forest right. It is another important thrust area, and also recognize their dues, that their right is protected. That is also another important area. Now the development of land and forest resources is also another thrust area for the in the current plan. Now, ensuring social security, it is another thrust area. Next, to provide with the appropriate housing and habitation facilities for the PVTGs, and at the same time they also target to see that the traditional architecture of these people is protected. Another thrust area is the development of telecommunication and road facilities, because connectivity is very less, because they live mostly in the inaccessible or difficult terrain. So road connectivity, telecommunication connectivity is very much necessary for these people. There is also another thrust area that aims at providing micro irrigation facilities. The plan also envisages to preserve the culture, architecture, medicinal knowledge, traditional cuisine of these people. There are another aim which tries to preserve the traditional tribal games and sports found among these communities. The government, in this current guideline formulated in 2019, is also planning to build memorials or museum-like structure for these people. There is another very important area, that the forest produce they collect, the artisanal activities or the craft products they do, this must be marketed properly. So government in this plan has also provision for marketing the local products. And at the same time, it is another unique feature of this current strategy or guideline for the development of the PVTGs, that it will accommodate any innovative action for the development of the PVTGs. This plan is also called CCD, that means Conservation Cum Development Plan. Now, this Conservation Cum Development Plan for the PVTGs has certain very interesting feature. First of all, this plan is a habitat-based approach. Secondly, this plan is a need-based approach. Instead of making it an annual plan, it also aims at the long-term formulation of the project, so that the impact can be judged in a considerable time. What type of input is given and what type of output is found. So this is another interesting, that it is a long-term plan, a 3 to 5 years plan in a sense. Next thing is that the plan takes into account the ground realities. So according to the need of the particular region or a particular tribe, so this can be made flexible for the application in that particular area. So this is very interesting. These are the very interesting features of the CCD plan. And this CCD plan will be implemented by a high level, state level executive committee chaired by the Chief Secretary of the state. And it will undertake several micro plans for the development of these people. So CCD can be expected to have a good impact for the development of the people. Now, why this development is needed? You can easily understand that these people have problem which is unique to them. Some of the problems are at least very unique to them, because of their comparative isolation, because of their remoteness, and because of their pre-agricultural technology. We find that their problem are to a certain extent unique in a sense. Now, what are the nature of problems these people suffer from? In fact, the general nature of problem for the scheduled tribes are more or less applicable for the PVTGs as well. But at the same time, there is certain unique that I was mentioning to these people, for which the problems are more aggravated, or problems need some special treatment for their solution. One is that they live in remote area, so the proper communication facilities must be done. So it's a problem of communication as well. Secondly, their economic development, as they are not only pre-agricultural, so they have the traditional kind of skill. So for making them appropriately skilled for the economic activities which are linked to the market, it is also another problem that they have such an economic backwardness. There are problem of bonded labor among them. It is another very important problem. For example, Seharia, for example, among the Juangs, we find that these people also work in others land in a kind of relationship that is the bonded labor in disguise. There is huge educational backwardness for these people. For example, if we take the case of Odisha, according to a report that the literacy rate among the scheduled tribe, the PVTGs living in Odisha, is only 33.38%, and among the women it is only about 24%. So we can easily understand how they are lagging behind in their rate of literacy. So educational problem is another very important problem for these people. Now there is a problem with their displacement. As the people are living in the forest, and forest is often cleared for several other purposes or demarcated for some special purposes, for protected forest, for reserve forest. So at that time they are also moved out from or forced to leave the traditionally the habitat in which they were living from time memorial for longer period. Such case can be, the example of such kind of displacement can be cited from the Baigas of Madhya Pradesh. When in Madhya Pradesh, the Achana Tiger Reserve was demarcated, then 245 Baiga families were displaced from the area. Same type of maltreatment by the forest officials are reported for the Kattunayakans of Tamil Nadu, who are traditional honey collectors in the Mudumalai wildlife sanctuary area. So they are being maltreated, they are being ousted from their traditional areas. It is another very serious issue of the displacement and rehabilitation problem for these people. Now come to the health related issues. If we take that issue, we don't find that the people are not properly given the freedom or autonomy to have the reproductive choice. And this type of problem has been reported in Kerala, in Madhya Pradesh, that the sterilization choice or the choice regarding what particular strategy for sterilization they would like to adopt. In this case, some external pressure are given on them. So this is not this is a problem for these people as well. So we find that the certain problems of these people are also very unique to them, apart from the economic and other kind of problems. Now, what suggestion can be made for the development of these people, and what steps the government has taken up? We have already mentioned that the government has formulated a plan, and before that we also find that in 2015 Ministry of Travel Affairs, they also specifically mentioned about the necessity for special planning for the development of these people, which has also been reiterated in a high power committee chaired by Professor Virginius Khaka, which tabled his report in 2014, in which the special problems and issues of particularly vulnerable tribal groups were mentioned. Now, the Ministry of Tribal Affairs, this particular government ministry made certain recommendation in 2015 that the scheduled tribe, these particular vulnerable groups, must be provided with a specially designated status, and vulnerability index must be prepared for these people, and the special connection of the PVTGs with their land must be recognized. There should be a constant monitoring of the development activities and development initiative among these people. The issues of land alienation and land right must be seriously taken up. So, in the new planning, new guideline, we find many of the reflections of these recommendations or observation made by the Ministry of Tribal Affairs in 2015. Now, if we take a particular case of a PVTG group, PVTG, because we have already understood what is meant by PVTG, what is their population, what are their features, what are the development activities among them, what is the recommendations and how their condition can be developed. So these are the aspects we have already dealt with. Now, if we take an ethnographic study or example of an ethnographic study done among them, we can easily find out how they are lagging behind. Now, Birhor, as the name implies, is a combination of Bir and Hor. Bir means jungle in their language and Hor means people. So they are people of the jungle. They say that their traditional or original homeland was somewhere near Ramgarh area of Bihar, from where they have migrated to many states, to Madhya Pradesh, Jharkhand, West Bengal, and now they are spread over a number of states. According to 2011 census, these people have a population in West Bengal 2,000 1241. The present study, which has been conducted in West Bengal, finds that the Birhor has been lagging behind other communities in education, particularly in education, and as well as they are still dependent much on the forest-based occupations. The education of the Birhor from the earlier study, it is known that according to 1981 census, the literacy rate among the Birhor was only 1.3%. In another study done by Sinha in 1999, it was found that only 2.32% of the total Birhor population studied in Madhya Pradesh are literate. In the present study, it is found that 53%, roughly 53.43% of the Birhor are literate in West Bengal. But in the studied area, but in the West Bengal, according to 2011 census, 58.21% of the Birhor are literate. This is much below the average literacy rate of the state and country as well. But at the same time, it should be mentioned that due to the impact of sustained developmental initiative, the present generation Birhor boys and girls are attending schools, and it is found that their enrollment is quite commendable, because in the present study it is found that almost 78% of the total Birhor boys and girls in the age group 6 to 14 years have enrolled. So enrollment is increasing day by day for these people, and at the same time the dropout rates is also decreasing among these people. But still the dropout rate is substantial, because in the present study it is found that this study has been published in Eastern Anthropologist Journal. It is also found that the dropout rate for the age group 12 years, it is 25%, and this is almost same for the age group of 13. The dropout is still quite 1/4 of the total students who enroll drop out at this level of 12 or 13 years. So the Birhor populations, the educational development, we find some improvement, but at the same time still they are lagging much behind other populations. So from the study, the Birhor, which were traditionally a hunter-gatherer people, and a number of scholars studied them and found that this Birhor population can be divided into two major subdivisions. One is the Utlu Birhor or nomadic Birhor. Another is the comparatively settled or sedentary Birhor or Jaggi Birhor, and these people go to the forest, collect the forest produce, used to catch animals, and for selling them in the local hut, and also some other plants. They also collect barks of trees with which they make ropes. So these are all their traditional occupation. But now they are also shifting from this traditional occupation to several other activities, as daily wage labor, as tractor driver, or as some agricultural labor, and also they are making ropes out of some synthetic materials, not from the barks of the trees. So this type of shift in their occupation, traditional occupation, has taken place among the Birhor. But still they retain much of their traditional culture, the clans, which were said 37 according to the study of S. Rai, who studied the Birhor and published on them in 1925. So these traditional features, their social structure is still retaining the uniqueness of this particular tribal group, and they are changing a lot nowadays. So with this example, we can say how a PVTG group is still lagging behind. However, they are preserving their traditional culture. And what are the necessities for the or requirements for their development? Because in West Bengal we find that they are found in five hamlets in 3 blocks in small population. Only one place they have been rehabilitated in Purulia district. So this type of scattered population, small population, needs a special kind of approach that can improve the particularly vulnerable tribal groups. Thank you very much.